Welcome back, Sierra Vista Baptist Church family. Pastor Matt. We are in 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 11 through 12. Now, if you remember, we've been talking about false teachers. We've been talking about how God saves the godly, God's in control. And so we are going to jump in. First, you may hear some sound in the background. That sound is the sounds of progress or the sounds of improvements, capital improvements. We are working on our stairs, and we hope to by the end of this week to have fresh carpeting on the stairs going down to the basement. So that's something exciting that's going on here, but that's the noise that you'll hear in the background. And so pardon the noise, but this is really the best time to get it done. Also, I want to remind you of the upcoming Reformation Day party, Reformation Day festival, kind of like a harvest party, harvest festival, but we're going to have a lot of stuff going on. And so if you are interested in helping with food, I'd ask you to contact Joy. We're thinking kind of like chili and hot dogs, just kind of fun food that we can have, kind of like a harvest party style. The next thing is we're going to need candy. We need candy, and we have some little toys that we can hand out as well instead of candy for some people. We're hoping that we're planning to have the Awana people do the games, and so they'll be doing games, and we're going to see what else we can get. I know COVID has thrown a wrench in a lot of things, so we may not be able to get jump houses, bounce castles, like I'm hoping to get, but we're going to have a hayride. So we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff going on. We'll also have that guest appearance by Martin Luther, all dressed up in monk clothes. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a good time. But let's get to our passage. Our passage is going to be fairly quick. We're not going to take a significant amount of time unpacking this because it really flows from last week's argument and this week's argument. So I hope you have your Bible, and at this time you want to go ahead and reread chapter 2, 1 through 12, and just so that you're following the flow of what Peter is saying. So take this second to go ahead and read it, pause this video, read your text, and then join me here at verse 11. And verse 11 says, "However, angels who are greater in might and power do not bring a slanderous charge against them before the Lord. But these people, like irrational animals, creatures of instinct, born to be caught and destroyed, slander what they do not understand, and in their destruction they too will be destroyed." Now that's pretty intense, powerful language. And so we see, first of all, the seriousness of their reviling, their slanderous charges. And then second, we're going to see the judgment of that same reviling. So let's go ahead and read our text, or let's go ahead and observe what is going on in this text. So we have an however here, so you should know if it says however, it's talking about what happened before. And so in verse 10, it talks about bold people, bold, arrogant people. They are not afraid to slander the glorious ones. So those false teachers, those false prophets, they're slandering even the angels, the messengers. And then it says, however, angels who are greater in might and power. So this gives us a clue as to what are some attributes of angels. Well, they're strong and powerful. They're mighty and powerful. And what do these angels do? They do not bring a slanderous charge against them before the Lord. So the angels aren't bringing charges about these false teachers to the Lord. And then it says, but these people, so we're back again talking about these false teachers, but these people, and this is an interesting descriptor, like irrational animals, creatures of instinct, born to be caught and destroyed, slander what they do not understand. And in their destruction, they too will be destroyed. So what do we got going on here? So as we've observed the text, we see in verse 11, we see the seriousness of the reviling. So this is a serious charge that even the angels who are way stronger, way more powerful, they're not bringing in slanderous charges. What could these slanderous charges be? Well, we see a connection to this in Jude 8 and 9. Jude 8 and 9 says, in these same way, these people, relying on their dreams, defile their flesh, reject authority, slander glorious ones. And then he goes on and talks about when Michael the archangel was disputing with the devil in an argument about Moses' body, he did not dare utter a slanderous condemnation against them, but said, the Lord rebuke you. So a lot of this has to do with knowing your place. The angels are not the accuser. That's what Satan does. Satan's the accuser. And so these angels are powerful. They have all the ability. They could bring charges against these slanderous false teachers, false prophets, but they don't. They don't bring them. They don't bring it before the Lord. So we, who are lower than angels in strength and power, but higher in our created nature, should live up to what we were created to do. But he's like, that's not what the false teachers are. These false teachers are really essentially like animals. So our job is not to be slanderous, not to ascribe evil intentions where we don't know for certain. We do not know this for certain the heart of these politicians. We can see by their actions that they have made very bad choices. We can see that they have made evil choices. In fact, we can also see the character of many of these people through their own deceit and through their own decisions and their own choices. But we cannot necessarily know what's in their heart. And so we have to be careful that we don't ascribe to them or bring a charge against them that is slanderous. Right? That's what we're not called to do. That doesn't mean we're not discerning. That doesn't mean that we're not wise. But it does mean that we don't just bring up evil thoughts about these people. We may not respect the person, but we respect the office, is what's often said. But we also have to respect the person for holding that office. We don't ascribe evil intentions if we don't know for certain. It's kind of like when I'm driving down the road, someone cuts me off in traffic. In my mind, typically I want to ascribe to them evil intentions. That guy just wanted to ruin my day, and I get all angry, I'm mad. But if I'm just saying maybe that he didn't see me, maybe he was oblivious, maybe he's on his way to the hospital to sit with his mom who's dying of cancer. We don't know the circumstances. And so our job is not to ascribe evil to people that we don't really know. And this would help us a lot, I think, in our political discourses, especially on social media and when we have these conversations where we don't ascribe to that person the evil intentions, but have a legitimate conversation with concerns about their position. And so anyway, this is something we need to be careful of. We want to imitate God and not imitate or Christ, and not imitate these false teachers, these false prophets. And then the second thing is, but these people like irrational animals. Irrational animals really gives you the sense of they're just acting on their bodily urges. They're not morally able to make decisions. I read an interesting study that was done with mice, and I think it was heroin or cocaine or some kind of drug, and in a sterile environment where there was like nothing going on, and they had a thing of heroin or a drug on one end and water on the other end. The mice would typically go after the drug. But when they added all these complex like games and wheels and other mice to socialize with, and the mice rarely went after the drug and started going more after the water. And so some people are like, well, if you entertain people and we'll have the same thing. The problem is mice are not human beings. They don't have a moral compass. And so it can't translate one for one. So we have to remember that when we think about animal behavior and animal actions, that there's no moral decision-making process going on there. And we as humans are called to resist some of our animal urges for the glory of God. And sin has corrupted our desires and our affections and our cognitive thinking so much that we act sometimes like irrational animals versus image bearers of God. And that's what we're being warned here about. That these people, these false teachers, are giving in to their animal instincts. And Peter here is making kind of like a hunting analogy or a trapping analogy, and says it's like these irrational animals. They're creatures of instinct, and they were born to be caught and destroyed. Right? Wild animals are a source of food, and part of our job is to trap and eat. And we see that when a city grows into what was used to be a rural or undeveloped area, animals get caught in that exchange, and it's dangerous for them and dangerous for us. And so part of our job as caretakers of this world is to be responsible in our conservation of these animals. And hunting provides a level of conservation. So we have to be aware that these false teachers are giving into their animal instinct, and we're going to see that as we continue down through this passage. And they slander what they do not understand. So this is kind of fascinating. We see this a lot in theological discourses. We see this a lot when an unbeliever looks at the evangelicals. In fact, this morning, Al Mohler on his briefing mentioned a magazine in Paris called Le Monde, I think, or the Diplomatic Le Monde or something like that. And in it, they were examining this growth of evangelicalism in South Korea, in Nigeria, I think in South America, and how these evangelicals are starting to expand, and they're affecting the culture, and they're changing society. And the French were unhappy with this because there tended to be a more... but there was a cultural change, and they didn't like that. So they were essentially slandering these people because they thought of it in terms of power, culture, and money or prosperity. Whereas our motives are not, shouldn't be power, money, or power or money, because we do want the culture to change. We want the culture to change to resemble what God intended us, which then gives us human flourishing. So they slander the evangelicals, and we're going to see this with the Supreme Court pick this year. We're going to see people railing against other people's religious views, especially if Trump chooses some of the ones that he has mentioned possibly choosing. They're already on an attack campaign. People are already on an attack campaign against these justices, trying to say, that they're religious, and so their religious bias is going to affect their outcome. And it's true. Religious bias should affect the outcome of our judgment. So remember that they have, people don't understand necessarily non-religious, everyone's religious. Non-Christians do not necessarily understand the meaning behind Christian behavior and actions. And so they tend to put on evil intentions towards that. One big thing that I have noticed is with these churches that have been forced to close because of COVID, and then the pastor wants us to start meeting again, and people will say things like, well, he's just narcissistic, he just wants the fame, he just wants the attention, he can't handle not being the center of attention. And that may be the case for some pastors, but the majority see the value in church and the essential nature of church and want to follow God in that. And so often they're slandered and misunderstood. So it says also, they slander what they do not understand, and in their destruction they too will be destroyed. Once again, Remember, Peter is writing to an early Christian audience, and false teachers have entered in and have started causing a ruckus and trying to lead people astray. And I think people are worried that these false teachers are leading people astray. And what Peter's saying is, their condemnation is coming. Their judgment is coming. So you don't have to worry, because God is going to handle this. And also to be aware. And we'll see that as we go down, talking about rebuke of lawlessness, etc. So what do we learn from this? How do we apply this to our lives? Well, we did a little bit of application about worldview and understanding the political climate. But I want to emphasize that God is in control of this. And we don't have to be afraid of what's going on around us. There's nothing new under the sun, and there's nothing that's surprising God. All this, God is in control of. So when we see the chaos in our country, pray for a revival. Pray for a revival of the gospel and true Christianity to go out throughout the whole country and through the whole world because of this turmoil and this strife. And people are going to be looking and hungry for answers. And we have God's word, which is the answer to our problems. So I hope this was encouraging to you. And until I see you again this Sunday, God bless and take care.